evening, everyone, and welcome to the Alton Board of Selectmen's meeting, March 24th, 2026. It is now 6 p.m. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. First thing would be the reorganization of the board.
I'd like to nominate Paul LaRochelle to be chairman, if you'll accept.
Don't ask him that. Just I'd second.
Okay. All right. I'll accept. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Board of Selectmen Vice Chair. I'd like to make a nomination for Drew Carter.
I'll second that.
I'll accept the nomination.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, Budget Committee. Last year, we had Drew Carter and Andrew Morse.
I'm okay with doing it again.
Andrew did reach out to me and express that depending on whatever the board's decision is, he is okay with keeping what he had last year unless one of the other board members feels they want to swap something up.
Okay, Drew, you said you're fine with?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And Andrew would be alternate. Okay, Capital Improvement Program, CIP, was also Andrew Morse.
I'm good with leaving him right there.
Okay.
Okay?
He'll be sorry he missed the meeting.
It sounds like he was okay with it.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, Conservation Commission. That was you, Drew.
That was me, and I'm fine doing that again as well.
Okay. Cyanobacteria, Steering Committee, Mitigation Steering Committee, that was me, and I don't believe we had much going on last year. If we do, I'll stay with it. Unless somebody else wants to.
It's all yours.
Thank you. Facility Committee was Richard Shea, and I was the alternate.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Actually, I'm fine with anything that needs filling in or backup.
Okay. And I will gladly stay the alternate. Okay, Household Hazardous Waste was Richard.
Yeah, and I don't know if we need that.
Yeah, I was going to mention that that was in place originally because of the agreement that we had for our household hazardous waste with Wolfboro. And now, since we have disbanded that agreement and we are utilizing Lakes Region Planning Commission to handle all of our hazardous waste through their program, I don't see a need to continue with that committee, or if the board should choose to just designate Mr. Shea if he wants to stay as a HHW representative should anything come up locally.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
I'd be fine if you would like to stay with that position in case something comes up.
Sure.
Would you be okay with that, yeah? Okay. Richard. Master Plan Committee. That was myself and was Nick Bonapane was the alternate. Is there anyone else that would be interested in Master Plan?
I can do the alternate if you need someone.
Okay. All right. Then it'll be myself and you as alternate.
Now, don't forget, we got Jack down here.
Yeah, no,
Yes,
the
I I know,
table,
I'm waiting for Jack.
staying very quiet.
Yep.
So,
I'm not trying to keep myself out, I'm just trying to see where I fit in.
The next one, and also, I mean, if you'd be interested in the master plan, if you'd like to learn a little bit about that and getting involved in that, you could take my place if you'd like.
I'm happy to. I think it's a good place to jump in and learn some stuff.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, I'm happy to step in there and do that.
Okay?
Okay.
excellent.
Okay, Jack? And that would be Richard. And
Yep,
Richard
as the alternate.
as the alternate. Milfoil Committee. Anybody,
Yeah, I can continue to do that if you wish.
okay? Okay, Old Home Week Committee. That was me. And last year, we did not have a committee together last year, so that did not form. I can, if anybody else is interested, if not, I can take that again. Is there anyone, Jack, would you be interested in that?
Sure. I'm not opposed.
All right.
Okay. Parks and Recreation Commission was Andrew.
Well, if he's willing to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. It sounded like he was willing to stay with all those. Planning Board was, the alternate was Drew Carter, and the Nick Bonapane was on the Planning Board.
I'm happy to fill that for Nick.
Okay? Planning Board, Jack.
And I'll stay on as alternate.
Okay? Okay. Water Bandstand Committee, I can still stay with that, unless there's somebody else that is interested, but I don't mind doing it. Okay. Okay. Zoning and Ordinance Committee, Zach was Drew Carter, and Nick Bonapane was the alternate.
I can do the alternate part or the committee part, whichever Drew doesn't want to handle.
Yeah, I'll take on that position on the committee. I don't think we ever got called in for a meeting last year at all on that.
Okay?
I'm also open alternate, but fine for you, Richard, if you like, if you want that.
I'm good.
Richard, okay. Okay, and the zoning board, actually does not need a representative from the board. From my understanding, it was just because I was already on the zoning board. And I'm sworn in as a zoning board member again.
Correct.
So I will be on the zoning board.
Yes.
All right.
Very good.
Maybe we do a general vote, approving the committees as
Yeah.
directed.
Okay, if everyone's happy with the outcome of the assignments of the Board of Selectmen, anyone like to make a motion to approve as the reorganization as written?
I'll make a motion to approve the reorganization of the board and the committee representations as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
I just have one, Mr. Chairman. Under old business number 2, Town Hall roof bid. I'd like to remove that from the agenda tonight. The trustees of the trust funds have requested that I meet with them at their April meeting with some additional information in regards to that process and more detailed information about the request.
About the
So I
request.
have planned to meet with them at their April meeting, and I will bring it back to the board after that.
Okay. Very good. no other changes?
None.
Okay.
I move we accept the agenda for the March 24th meeting as amended.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The public participation policy applies to all selectmen meetings. A copy of this is in the back of the agenda, posted outside this meeting room and on our website. Public input for 3 minutes on the agenda items only. Anyone?
Just make sure, is that on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen, for allowing me the opportunity. My name is Patrick O'Brien. I'm both a resident and a full-time employee of the town of Alton. This will be in reference to the discussion on revised operating budget. It's a little long-winded to start, but I promise I'll get to my point. We've all felt the squeeze with inflation has put on our everyday lives, from groceries to heating oil to fuel for our vehicles, dependent care, and housing. This has forced many to not only find a part-time job, but in some cases 2 or 3 part-time jobs to maintain the same quality of life that we maintained with just one 5 years ago. We are certainly not exempt from that fact. And in short, we understand your decision to restrict budget funding in an attempt to ease that tax burden. I feel confident in speaking for the Alton firefighters at this point when we say we continue to remain mission-focused and community-driven. Our profession is built with core values of sacrifice, where we knowingly agree when duty calls, we may sacrifice everything up to and including our lives in support of it. And no amount of compensation can be offered for that. We are in no way solely driven by compensation, however, we do require the tools necessary to complete that mission. The single largest tool in our arsenal is staffing. Our department has exhausted nearly all possible staffing models over the past 20 years in an attempt to avoid the burden of full-time staffing, and we did not get to this position by choice. And in fact, it was more so out of necessity due to exponential growth in calls over that time frame and a nationwide decline in volunteerism. In an effort to change the narrative from my previous use of the word burden in the sense of full-time staffing, having all previously mentioned full-time positions filled ensures 2 full-time career-trained firefighters are in the station and responding to your emergency at a moment's notice, reducing the precious minutes in comparison to those responding from home or even other communities. Alton is certainly not alone in this staffing crisis, and our mutual aid partners are also battling their own very unique staffing challenges. Your Alton firefighters take your emergency personally and consistently work to improve themselves and others around them in an effort to make sure that you go home to your loved ones or that you have a home to go home to. Sadly, our call volume is increasing at a rate in which we cannot seem to catch up with, forcing the request of 4 additional full-time firefighters last year on the ballot. This was supported despite the rising costs we have all faced, proving the community truly believes in our mission and, more importantly, our firefighters. While municipal budgets can be incredibly confusing, many did not realize that a no vote on this year's budget, despite the notifications, did not allow for the funding of these positions, which we so desperately need to meet the rising needs of our community. Should the revised operating budget be an option proposed by the Board of Selectmen, we strongly ask for your support in passing the budget to retain and fill all of these so desperately needed positions. For now, we stand ready to help our neighbors in their times of need to the best of our ability. Thank you for your continued support. It is our pleasure to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Evening, gentlemen. Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
Ruben. Gentlemen, I sat here before you at town meeting at one time, a couple of meetings, and said you needed to be the leaders. You needed to sell your budget. You failed to sell your budget. Talking with a few of your town employees, they came into my store upset, budget didn't get passed, no pay raises. Talked to a few of them and sat there and said, you know, we had a merit pay, 1 to 5%. Most times it came in 3 to 5, most employees got. So I went back for 3 years. If you'd stayed with the merit pay, 3 to 5%, Most of them wouldn't have had a 15% now if they had 5% pay increase every year for mayor pay, or 9%. With the budget increases you had, with the numbers I did, you would've came in with a 6% budget increase to 7, which you could have sold. But the people kept seeing a 10%, 11% budget. They were feeling the squeeze on their taxes. Property taxes were still going up even on a default budget last year. That hurt a lot of people. Granted, it's failed by a slim margin, but it still failed. So your employees sit here tonight saying, what are we gonna do? If you went for a special town meeting, I'd have no problem, and I'd back your budget if you came in at the 7%. But if you come in again with 10%, I'm gonna tell you, most of the people in the community will fail it. 1 year, I could see it not passing. Second year, you did it again, failed. Third year, we should have known better. Thank you.
Thanks, Roy.
Thank you, Roy. Anyone else?
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
My name's Steve Lyden. I live at 58 Dobbins Way. I'm a transplant. I came up from Massachusetts 6 years ago. Paul and I have had many conversations over the past couple of years. Very strong advocate of public safety. I was a 38-year career firefighter. My daughter was a police officer. My son-in-law is a firefighter. I see these guys go out every day. They put their life on the line, and my understanding is the way the budget's been constructed over the past couple of years, that people think they got pay raises when everybody else did. My understanding is they didn't, that they're like 3 years behind, like 4% each year or 3%, I'm not sure on the numbers. And with each field budget, they don't play catch-up. Like other municipalities, you get a raise promised to you, and it's retro. They're not entitled to that, from what I understand. If the budget passed this year, they get the percentage going back to January 1st. I understand everybody's really handcuffed right now, but I've kind of seen, since I've been here, a transient department, because there's so much turnover, and now that you can't get the people that are in town, people aren't interested in the job as much as they used to be. Both, not only police and fire, DPW, I put my hand out to them too, because without the roads being cleared and whatnot and maintained, they wouldn't be able to get to where they gotta go. So, you gotta look at the other end of the training aspect of it. You're spending a lot of time and money putting thousands of dollars on their backs and gear. You're putting them through EMT school. Granted, when they get hired there in EMT, they go to EMTA or paramedic. This is all stuff that if they end up losing their position here, somebody else is gonna scoop them, and you're gonna go through the same process all over again when the time comes. And then the other thing that I see a lot of is simultaneous calls. And one just happened the other day. 2 medical calls at the same time. Ambulance is in Concord. Chief and firefighter Cody were out in West Alden. They got the call for the structure fire on, right off of Route 28. So now you got first in out of Gilmanton. It's a long run. And, you can't rely on mutual aid companies to do your day-to-day operation. You have to have a structured budget for it. And, I'm just speaking from experience. I witnessed a lot in 38 years and kind of, have a good idea on how things work. But that's just my 2 cents worth. Hopefully, if you want to talk someday, if Paul knows how to get a hold of me, give you some advice, just kind of help things along so these guys aren't, and no one's losing their jobs, and help out and maintain what you have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing no one, there's no appointments this evening. We'll go into new business, assessing department revaluation contract. Come on up, Rob.
Evening, everybody.
Good evening.
How you doing?
Good, good, good. All right. We have the revaluation contract from Whitney Consulting. It's $110,000. That's the contract. As we're gonna go into the budget shortly, the remainder of the $116,000, what is it, $560 is postage and envelopes. Have to do it, RSA 75-8A. We have to reval the town at minimum every 5 years. It's not optional, and if we don't get it funded, it comes out of the budget anyway. It is a mandate, we have to do it. So, there's really not a whole heck of a lot to discuss. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask me about it?
Their proposal appears very complete.
Yeah.
Do you have any issues with it, or?
None at all. I'm very comfortable with Steve and with Whitney Consulting. They're excellent at what they do, and we've been in great hands with them since 2018.
And this is the same contract as we've had.
Yep. Yeah, well, this is the end of the 5-year cycle to perform the revaluation, but they've been, the mentality that has built our assessing department is essentially their mentality.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I want to prompt Rob to explain to the board and provide some background information about Whitley Consulting, how long they've been working for the town, and the fact that they provide contracted services currently, and they have for several years. So if you can go into that, just so the board understands
Sure.
that this is why this company in particular has presented the contract.
Right, Whitney Consulting has been with the town since 2018. They performed the beginning of the cyclical revaluation at that time, then they performed the 2021 revaluation, then they have performed the cyclical from 2021 to current, and they are on to do the revaluation for 2026.
Okay.
That's really the background
That's it in
of
a
it.
nutshell,
Yeah, there's not much to it besides that, other than it's difficult with the assessing program to throw another mind into it. In other words, it's their view of properties, and mine as well to a certain degree, but it's a system that gets built up over time that is very difficult, not tolerant to disruptions. In other words, somebody else would come in, it would be very inefficient for them to have to try to reconfigure the way the town is assessed. It's an organic process that the longer you do it, the more consistent it becomes.
And what happens if, like you said, this is a mandatory process every 5 years?
That's right.
What is the penalty if you were to fail and not do a reval?
Ultimately, I can't say, other than it is against the law not to, which means the Department of Revenue would cite us to the Board of Tax and Land Appeals, and the Board of Tax and Land Appeals would issue whatever they would issue an order that would be enforceable by the state Supreme Court. Essentially, it's all legal.
Yeah.
But my ultimate understanding of it is, it will also come with a very significant fine. What it is, I couldn't tell you. I don't know that, at least to my knowledge, I don't know that that has been tried yet.
Right.
So, this process went into play after the 2002 case that, I can't remember, Sorrell case that came through, changed the way schools were funded. The Supreme Court found that donor towns versus receiver towns were unconstitutional. And at the same time, they found that towns being significantly outdated in terms of their revaluations
There were some towns at that time in 2002 that hadn't revalued their property since 1980. And the state found that that discrepancy amongst assessments between towns was unconstitutional, and the legislature changed the law and instituted 75-8A, which says every 5 years, every town will make their values new again. And so that's been the case, the law of the land since 2002.
All right.
So do I understand that, so there was no competitive bidding for this contract?
Correct, yeah, I've been operating under the auspice that these guys did 2021 and all the way through, but that's correct, there's no competitive bid, and if we were going to do a competitive bid, the time to do that would be for 2027 going forward. You gotta have the cycle of the same folks that know the town and have been measuring and listing the properties are setting the values. You would not want to do that at this point in a revaluation cycle. It wouldn't be, first of all, you wouldn't get anybody to bid on it right now because these companies are all locked into what they're gonna do for the year.
Well, yeah, I understand. It's rather late to be
Right, and
entertaining that as an option. but
Correct, and secondly,
The question is, should that have been entertained 6 months ago?
I personally don't think so. I think that the company that we have that's doing it is excellent, and I think while it wasn't competitively bid, I think trying to change that after 5 years of their cyclical would not be smart. So if we wanted to do that, the time to do that would be 2027, after the 26 reval. Go competitive and see if we can get a better price, so that the company that comes in is doing the pickup work and learning the town over the next 5 years before we have to do another reval again in 31.
Right, and then my other question is what was the reevaluation cost 5 years ago?
85,000.
Okay, so,
And then
so,
substantive costs behind that, the mailings and all that, so call it 90,000.
all right, so we're 20,000 plus
Oh, yeah,
up.
yep.
Okay.
Does this company, or perhaps your office, be able to structure some kind of a public education description of the process? So
Of course, it's on the website.
it's already on there?
Hell, yeah.
You're way ahead of me as
Yeah.
usual. Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, I've had it on there since 21, and people are welcome to come in and talk to me anytime.
Yeah, that's good to know, because
Yep, my office door is always open.
the very word scares the daylights out
I
of the average
understand.
person, so.
I will say, since we're on the public record, I want everybody to understand the way a tax rate is made. And this is one of the civics things that we don't teach very well. It's the budget, the total budget, the school, the town, the county, minus all the revenues, divided by the value of the town. So please, please, please understand, you can't take your revaluation number and apply last year's tax rate. When the value of the town goes up, if the budget stays the same, the value will go down. So if we double the value of the town, which is more than likely to happen, don't panic when you get your preliminary value. The rate will also be offset. In general, most property owners are within 10% plus or minus of what their taxes were the year before. They don't change a whole heck of a lot. And the outliers are the properties that change a great deal. So if you're waterfront property, you're more than likely gonna see a tax burden increase, and as anybody who's watched MUR this past year knows, if you're in mobile homes, which is unfortunate because mobile homeowners, I hate to pass the burden on to them, but we follow the real estate market, and mobile homes sell for vastly more than they're assessed. They become the new starter homes. So if you're in a mobile home or if you're on a waterfront property, you're likely to see a burden increase. Everybody else will stay about the same or go down a little bit. Just so you understand, and so that's out there so people can hear it now, and then they can come talk to me anytime.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't think they like that
I was
description.
gonna say, cleaner in
I
the
guess
room with that conversation.
Scared them away. good at that once
Sounds
I
like
get
they may have
going.
got a call. Yep. On duty. Any other questions? Jack?
I'm good.
Mr. Chairman, if I just may
Yes.
add, there's a sheet on your table. I just received that today, and Rob, I don't know if you saw a copy of this, but you're on the email chain with DRA. This piece of paper was DRA's confirmation, and I just wanted the board to be aware that these contracts have to be presented to DRA as well before any acceptance. And what this letter is DRA's confirmation that they have reviewed the recommendation, reviewed the contract, and they do not have any recommendations for any changes or edits to the contract. Just so you know that there is a third-party government agency that is a part of this process as well.
Department of
that
Revenue
oversees it.
oversees the whole thing.
They
That's
oversee
correct.
the whole thing.
Yep.
Okay. And obviously, there's no contract or anything signed at this time.
No.
Right,
there is
no,
not.
but
Obviously, we can't.
they have to see it before, they don't, how to explain this the right way? They don't get involved directly, but they will review the contract to make sure there's nothing missing, left out, essentially just to make sure that all parties are playing fair with one another, for lack of a better way to put it. But Department of Revenue oversees all revaluation contracts and personnel. So they are involved that way. So they don't get involved in whether it's signed or not. They just get involved in whether or not it's deficient in any way or not.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Very good. If there's no other questions, we thank you very much for
Sure,
your information, your
Thank you,
input.
Rob.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Rob. Okay, old business. We'll go into revised budget presentation and discussion.
At this point, we don't need to make any motions related to the revaluation contract.
That would be up to the board at this point, whether or not you feel comfortable, or if there are gonna be some discussions about the funding for that during the second part of the discussion. So, I think maybe at that time, if the board wants to, just because they're kind of go hand in hand as far as the
Right,
budgeting goes, so.
So that's what we need to wait on that and see how we go with the budget presentation.
Certainly.
Okay, I'm good with that.
So gentlemen, you had two documents that were on the table when you came in. Just to give, I'm just going to provide an overview of the documents and what is here. And for those of you in the audience, there was documents out front on the table. But I'm gonna give you a general overview of what you're looking at. But as you can tell by the audience, most of all of our department heads are here tonight to speak individually on their departments, their needs, their deficiencies, and what these changes mean directly for their departments and how they plan to move forward directly from them. So first of all, if you look at the spreadsheet, and not the detailed budget, the spreadsheet with the vertical columns. This is the overall budget, and this is line item by line item.
Right.
What this is this is shrunk down so that it is all the line item numbers without the details in it. And the reason this is a general overview, we will get into the detailed budget as well. The overview, so what you have in front of you is a revised operating budget that, if this were something the board chose to go in, I will go to the bottom numbers and what you're looking at, and then explain to you what the changes were and how we got there. So what that would do is, it would change our bottom line proposal to $10,132,064. What that means in terms of, in comparison, the proposed operating budget that was defeated at March's election was $996,000 $79 above the default. So that's the difference. And that was what was defeated. With the new proposed operating budget, the difference between the new and the default would come down to $336,503. So it would be an overall reduction on the proposal of $659,576 is what the overall reduction is.
It's significant.
So that's the overview on the numbers, and I'm gonna show you this initial proposal and where we're at. What that does is, under this spreadsheet, you'll see the line items that are highlighted. The finance director went through and highlighted the changes, and then we'll get into how those changes were made. And again, hear from every department, so those questions can be asked and answered by the department heads themselves. So what this did was, we ended up focusing on 6 vacant positions. There's 2 identified out of DPW, 2 identified out of fire, and 2 identified out of police. Right now, they have vacancies, and being the 3 largest departments with the most staff, wages and benefits, again, I want to stress the word benefits too, because we're going to talk about medical, dental, retirement, all that comes out of the benefit line, are the most significant overall in looking at the numbers. So if you'll see, going through the highlighted, first of all, you do come to employee benefits, and you can see those highlighted. Again, we're talking on a line item. I'll get into more particulars, but you see the differences. With those 6 positions being identified, we got health and dental insurance, there's a savings of $135,256. Police retirement is $1,083. Employee retirement is $112,851. And then fire's retirement is $33,526. Again, that is just reflecting the change in the vacant positions, not any of the currently employed, current employees. And again, we have to break that up separately because the contributions for fire, police, and just Group 1 town employees is all different. That's why they have to be categorized different. It's not the same contribution percentage. Then you see the next change on the very next page is the assessing department. Again, this one is the increase for the contracted services. This is where we usually put all services contracted, especially the reval. This year, we had attempted to establish a capital reserve, which did fail. But in the years past, like the $85,000 from our last 5-year cyclic was in this line as contracted services. And then moving forward, you come to the police department's budget next. You see the reduction of the reallocation of full-time wages. The reduction in those vacant positions that we would be using is $102,360,000. Then there is holiday pay. Without those positions filled, there's a savings of $6,250. Fire department is the next one in line on this. The full-time wages with those 2 positions is a savings of $156,297. Benefit buyout line, there's a savings of $6,695,000. And then correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, while you're sitting in here, but the benefit buyout on fire, because they are recently incorporating the full-time staff, is equivalent to the police department's holiday line, correct? That is, benefit buyout covers their holiday pay and any benefits, so I just want to be clear of that. Then going into Department of Public Works. In those positions that we would not be filling and leaving vacant, there's a savings of $190,216. And then on overtime wages, there's a savings of $27,823. On the last page, you have the Parks and Rec Department. And they had made some concessions on Old Home Week because of the lack of a committee. There's a savings of $2,999, and there was a reduction in the number of concerts, saving a total of $800. And again, I'm doing a general overview. I have every intention of having the department heads come up and speak to these changes directly,
Okay.
so that the board can ask and hear about any particular topics they want in regards to those departments. So those highlighted items are the items that we have identified, and we have changed to reduce that number down to an increase of $336,000. Sorry, lost my page.
Yeah, I got it right here.
$336,503. Now, again, for the benefit of everybody in the public, that is what we're talking about would be the increase from the default. There would be an additional $336,503, and that would cover the expenses that we need to cover, including the reval, and also honor the 4% merit increase for the employees that were earmarked to get them in the original budget proposal.
Which is a difference of the $996,079.
Yes.
The difference from the proposed budget to what this proposal would be.
Yes.
Savings of $659,576.
Correct.
So the 336 would go to, would be applied to the default budget.
It would be above and beyond.
Above and beyond.
The total.
It would be applied to that, yes.
The default total,
Yes.
Not being a math wizard, do you know what that works out to
Do you know what that
percentage-wise?
overall, I was thinking of that, and I never
What is-
figured it
what
out
is that
today.
number?
Do you know what that overall increase is, percentage-wise?
So are you looking from the 2025 budget? Like
From
moving
the-
forward, like from the 2025 to what we would do if we pass this one? It's like a 4.1.
4.1?
From
Okay.
25 to now, then revised would be a 4.1.
And from the default budget to now?
From the 2025 default budget that we
Oh,
got.
that's the default
yes.
budget. That's right, that was our regular budget, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So 4.1%.
Okay. And that actual number would be adding the 356,000, so we have, the 336,503 to the default budget is?
Correct, you would get that 10,
That, wait,
132.
10,132,064.
that would be your new warrant article number.
That would be the new number.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. If the board is good with that overview, we can start going down, looking at
Yes.
the revised budget packet. This is every line item that's here,
on here.
but they're broke down into further detail, showing positions, showing what each line includes, and also there are highlighted points where there's notes that were put under each line showing what was reduced, to get us down to that number. And my intention for tonight was, if the board's wants to, is bringing up those department heads
Absolutely.
to talk about this proposal, but also if they have alternative proposals or things for the board to consider, that they could present them at that time. So going down through the first page of general administration, You have, there's nothing in the general administration that is changing from the original proposal.
I was just gonna say that. Didn't look like there were any changes.
There are no vacancies currently in the administration budget. All the positions are filled. All broken down. There was nothing else identified in that budget. I'm certainly willing to talk about anything that the board might want to talk about. But in the essence of time for the night, I wasn't going to go through every single line that doesn't have a change in it. But certainly, whatever the board wishes.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the board?
No, I realize that we have some time constraints, and there's only so much you can do. We haven't made any reductions in items, it looks like, other than wages and benefits. I would assume there's some savings that could be made in other areas. They're probably not significant. I don't know if we need to pursue that or not. We certainly don't have time to pursue it tonight.
So I will say through the budget process and what we proposed this year, the department heads very closely level funded most all of their operating lines.
Right.
There were a few small increases for utilities, fuels. There was actually some reductions in electric because we had that scare last year where everything was or a couple of years ago where the prices spiked, but they didn't go as far high as they initially were. So there were reductions there. Predominantly, most of that entire $996,000 originally increase was in wages and benefits. And just speaking to that point, as we followed through the last 3 years, there were certainly some changes that I don't know if everybody in the community realized it, but we tried to be as accommodating. So the first year, we all know we've been trying to make this full-time transition with the fire department from call to full-time. There was a staged process that was put in place. With the old administration, it was prior to my arrival here. We were following that. The fire department was following that progression. When we hit the first default, they were supposed to have 2 full-time positions, and we lost those positions. The second default, there was a lot of comments and a lot of feedback from the public that didn't realize that we lost the full-time fire department positions because they were brand new. They're not in the default. Until they're adopted at town meeting, they're not in the default. So there was people in the public that expressed not understanding that by voting the operating budget down and going, that we were gonna lose those positions and that progression that we were supposed to be making towards full-time. Going into the following year, based on that feedback that we received, and understanding that the feedback is limited. It's not like I heard from 1,000 people in town, but the feedback I was getting from the board, from people out in public, was that it really needed to be, people needed to realize that they were voting on those fire department positions because they felt it was very important. So the following year, we put 4 full-time positions on a separate, independent warrant article. So that independent warrant article passed very, very successfully last year. So basically what we took from that is that the public spoke and they wanted to proceed. We put all 4 on one warrant article, and the public wanted to proceed in the same manner towards a full-time fire department. And I'm getting to this because of how we ended up here. This $996,000, because the fire department personnel were voted in by the public, and we adopted those 4 positions and all the benefits that go along with them, this year, all 4, along with all the expenses, had to go into the operating budget. Because if they don't go into the operating budget, they do not carry forward. An independent warrant article is a one-time expenditure, meaning we only raise funding and wages for that 1 year. And actually, that warrant article was only the 3 months shy of a full entire year, because it was only from March on that we fund for. So with those positions in, and the 4% merit increase for all the other employees that were due it based on the personnel policy, that is pretty much, without saying entirely 100%, I would say at least 93% of that increase in the budget is all of those wages and benefits. And again, we weren't trying something this year, and I guess I'm just explaining this for the benefit of everybody. We weren't trying this year to throw in some new projects, some new spending, and some new work. We were trying to incorporate all of those full-time positions and benefits into the operating budget at one time, and that's where the increase came from. And that's why, looking through this budget and what was proposed, and looking at the 25, you're gonna find very, very small increases, and that's why we provided all this paperwork for anybody to take and look at, line item by line item. If you look at the first column as 25 budget, that's a default budget that was carried forward. And then what the actual recommendations were and brought forward, you can see what those differences are for every line. And where you see minor increases, you see some minor deductions too in general operating expenses. The big jumps and the big leaps, which was on that spreadsheet I provided for you at our last meeting last week. That spreadsheet highlights all the significant differences, and you'll see they're all wage and benefit related.
Yes.
There really isn't anything else in there to be identified other than, you know, $500 here, $1,000 there. I know it all adds up, but it takes a long time to get there when you're looking at trying to reduce $600,000, $700,000. The only way possible in every which way, and I will let Laura speak to this because she spent every day hammering on these spreadsheets, that there really wasn't any other way to get to that significant decrease than to start targeting vacant positions that have not been filled. It's the only way that we could get there, but I'm sorry. I just thought it was important to sort of set
it's
that
very important.
chronological as to how
It's very important.
how we got here and why the proposal looked and had the increase that it did. Because we were trying to make a very significant transition from call to full-time, which is a very hard thing to do for any community or any fire department, rescue, to make that transition and make it successfully. So, continuing on through, by all means, any questions that you have.
Well, looking at the administration part of it, it doesn't look like there was much that could be reduced, as far as the actual expenses and wages and things like that for the administration.
And then budget committee, it's a very standard, we're only talking about a $3,201 budget for the budget committee. And then, we're going into, town clerk, tax collector, elections and registration. Jen is here with us tonight. Oh, there she is. There's not a lot of changes in her line item budgets, but I definitely want to give Jen the opportunity. You want to, are you?
Come on up, Jen.
You don't have to if you don't want to.
Come on up.
But,
Please.
give you the opportunity I want every department head to have the opportunity, even if there aren't significant changes.
Planning and zoning, where are we at? As far as on this sheet, there it is. So you went through all your
Yes.
wages and all through your department, and
Yeah.
going through it, there there wasn't a lot you could do in that department.
We're pretty much just a bare bone to be able to
Just bare
provide the
bones
services.
as it's been?
Yep. I mean, last year, we got creative and stopped sending out the renewal notices, so it's by email. We do have alternate ways to get that, because we'll have it saved to our desktop, to try to cut on expenses. The cost of postage stamps have increased drastically since the last approved budget, as well as toner and envelopes.
Okay.
But currently, you are fully staffed, I think, anyhow.
We currently are, and we have a part-timer. So if we are at the default budget, with the default budget, that position goes away.
Right, that part-time position
Yeah.
was on a warrant article.
It was last year, yep.
Yep.
But we will make do.
Yep.
That's what we gotta do.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Jen?
Nope, I don't have
Okay.
any.
And just to point out, the next one on elections.
My
We did
favorite.
make adjustments on elections based on the number of elections by state statute in the default, so we are covered for election, correct me if I'm wrong.
We are covered for that?
Correct, unless you do a special meeting.
Right.
And the special meeting would be how much?
Well, we originally talked about, it's about 5,000.
Around 5,000?
It's gonna be less than that. I just got the price for 2,500 ballots. It's only about $800. So
Oh.
it's half of what we originally thought for the cost of ballots
That would
themselves.
cover the cost of the ballots and?
Yep, yep, and program the accessible voting tablet that we have to do by law and so forth, and the programming.
Okay. All right,
Good news, good news.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
We'll be going to,
Just to point out, we're going through the legal budget. We didn't make any reductions, but the legal budget's been level funded since I took over back in 2023. I will say that that's getting, we'll make it work and do as best as I can, but we have 5 open land use cases right now with the community.
Yeah.
That there's no avoiding it. So we're hoping that a few of them have gotten recent judgments and some of those expenses will come down, but we had $19,000 in legal bills last month alone. There was a couple of big cases that hit court that had significant bills, but just, that is one expense that we can't get away from.
no, and I mean, it has to be there.
Yes.
If you win the suits, are you awarded attorney fees?
No.
Bummer.
Because these ones they're not those kind of suits, they're
Okay.
land use appeals. Most of them are either planning board decision appeals or zoning board appeals
Okay.
that we're litigating right now, and a couple of big cases that gained a lot of notoriety around town, so.
So
But
nothing changes for the
Nothing
legal
changes.
police prosecutor or,
no, the police prosecutor, there was a small increase in that, and that one was due, so there was a increase of, was that about
The camera.
7,000? It was the cameras.
the cameras that's going through the camera info.
Yeah, the
Correct.
body cams.
Yes.
Right, the body cams are a significant amount of time for trial prep, because all those videos have to be viewed and reviewed. Plus, they need to be transferred over for discovery. But there was another change that went along with that, is that they made changes to the felony first rules, basically putting preliminary felony cases back into the hands of local prosecutors, where at felonies, that felonies at that point were passed on to the county attorney's office. There's more work involved with the recent law changes for our local prosecutor at the local level. And when the police chief gets up here, I'll let him speak to that more.
Very good.
Going into benefits, I'll let
Was just
Laura
gonna ask
speak, yeah,
Laura.
Laura speak on that one. She did the numbers with the benefits.
Okay, so, health and dental, we had 4 vacancies during budget season that we budgeted for, I removed all 4 of those.
Mhm.
So it pretty much took it down to 135,256
Yeah,
right
okay.
out of that.
Again, that's significant.
Yeah, I think the voters should be aware that our staff people were able to negotiate an exceptionally low health insurance increase, where a lot of towns are looking at 15 to 25%. I think we ended up at around 3.
We did for, we
Otherwise,
locked in
we'd
for
be,
18 months.
we'd
yeah.
have a whole different bunch of numbers here to sweat over.
Yeah.
Police retirement, I reduced it to, there was a school resource officer that will not be funded. So I reduced his and, a half a year of a patrolman. Employee New Hampshire retirement, there was quite a few open positions in the Public Works Department, so we didn't have to figure their New Hampshire retirement. And fire as well, for the open positions that won't be funded in this budget.
Okay. Now, that's also in this here, there's the police,
That's a retirement.
that's all part of the
Yeah,
retirement.
that's all part of the retirement.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Laura. Unless anybody else has any questions, the planning board would be next.
Planning and building are the next two. There were no adjustments made to those two. They're relatively small budgets in their entirety. Their main increases, if you look from 25 over, is wages. There is a part-time position that is a part-time building inspector that was funded through a warrant article again, that's in there. Right now, those wages and fees, that's a necessity because it's the only building inspector we have right now who is conducting building permit issuing, assisting with code enforcement and doing regular inspections, and they're keeping up nicely right now. So the money that we are offsetting in full-time wages right now is covering that. If we go to default, the funding in the part-time line, if we stay at default, I shouldn't say go to, because we are at it right now.
Right.
Those part-time wages are gone under the current default. In this new proposal that we're bringing forward, those wages are still in, and in building and planning, we still have the full complement of personnel, with the intention to hire out department heads for both of those departments. I know there was some talk, and there may be some more discussion about the building department and the building inspector's role, but the intention right now is to show what the proposal would look like with those being
With
filled.
those already
because-
being in there.
because they're pretty significant positions that, because really, we would only be able to shoulder that with 2 administrative assistants in those roles, and I don't think that this workflow in there could handle that.
No, those positions that need to be filled.
So going into assessing, obviously the reval contract. I'll leave it up to the board. If Rob is still here, happy to answer any questions. If you would like to ask any more questions and follow up to that.
I think Rob covered things pretty well.
Yeah, I think he did too. Just, it's a matter of how we proceed with the contract.
Right? Yeah, that's
Where
pretty
that's
much
gonna
the
come from.
size of it. Everything else in my budget, literally, the only other thing is the 4% cost, which is $5,110. The rest of my budget combined is less than $4,000, like $3,900 and something. If I cut everything out of my budget, I still couldn't cover a 4%. So I'm as close to the bone as I can get it. I literally have nothing left to cut, so, and the reval is a mandate, so there's nothing I can do about it. We tried, for the sake of transparency, to pull it out, set up a CRF to pay for it gradually over time, so that it won't hit. It's very difficult when you have to do a periodic, expensive, and, it cost $85,000 the last time, it costs $110 now. In 31, it's gonna cost more than that. how else to express it, other than it's a necessity, it has to be done. And there's not a great way to plan 5 years in the future when budgets are set 1 year at a time. It's just a difficult hurdle. So any questions you have, otherwise, that's
That's it in a nutshell.
literally it. The only increase is for the cost of the revaluation, otherwise my budget is flat, plus whatever the increase is for merit adjustment.
I think you covered it.
I think we did too. So within the budget that's now proposed,
That 116 is in that.
it's in that proposal.
Yeah, that's part of
we have.
that 300.
That's part of that.
Yep,
If we were to go to a revote,
correct.
that would be covered
That's in
in
that
that
number. That's right.
300 and, yeah, okay. I just want to make that clear.
Yep.
Okay.
I think we all understand that money has to be spent this year.
We'll have to find it somewhere. It
So-
won't be out of his budget, it'll be out of the bottom
Right.
line,
No.
but we have to find
I
it.
implore people to see the rational nature of that. It's an increase that's mandatory. The court is gonna hold our feet to the fire, and paying fines on top of that, just please see sense.
Is there a time constraint on?
Well, it'll
what we
be
would have to-
effective, right, it'll be effective April 1st, but the whole process, by the schedule that we have in the contract, the whole process will be completed in time for the board to accept the new values by November the 1st. So that's, the whole project works backwards from the end date of November 1.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, welcome.
Any other questions?
So I do have a question. Do we need to vote to approve that contract and get that authorized
Yes.
signing of that contract?
Yes,
So,
what needed to be presented to the board was not just the fact of the money, we'll have to find the money, and that's
Yeah.
fine, we'll make it happen, we have to, there's no question. But the issue of the contract coming from, it's a unique situation in the fact that Whitley Consulting already works for the town as a contracted service. They have since 2018. They're doing the cyclic because there's the question of bidding the services. Did all the cyclic pickups for the last 5 years leading up to this. They did our last reval and carried the gap in between. There is, it's a struggle, oh, sorry, I knocked that thing off. It's a struggle to bring, to try to bid out with an outside company coming in that has not been doing our cyclic work and pickups under contracted services for all that time coming in. But it's certainly an option that the board has, but the board would have to decide on whether or not, under these circumstances, whether you wanted to waive the bid policy or not. It's unique in the fact that they already provide services for us.
Well, I'm finding that the board is kind of in a position where we don't have a hell of a lot of choice here.
No, we don't.
But I think that going forward, I think we need to make sure that we have more options to choose from. Company may be terrific, honest as the day is long, that's great, but unless we have competitive bidding out there, there's no way to know that for sure. But with that being said, I think that, I'd like to certainly make a motion to authorize the signing of this contract to get this reevaluation done and finding the money wherever we can find it to make it happen. So I think that was my motion.
That you're making a motion on that right now? Okay.
I'll
Do
second
we have a
that.
second? We have a second. Any further discussion?
It just, as part of that motion would be the choice to waive the bid process.
Yes, and then, yes, I will amend my motion to include waiving the requirements to go to competitive bid on this particular contract.
I'll amend my second to include that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
If I may just add, that's over, but to Drew's point and what I was getting from Rob, with the board having that opportunity for competitive bid, I think after we get through my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, of the process is that window to bid out those services and look at those services comes after the reval, because they worked up to the first reval, did the reval, and then continued with the cyclic work through the reval.
Correct.
And I think that window, if that's something the board wants to explore, then we tee up for that come after acceptance of these values, we tee up for.
We would, in theory, be pursuing this November, December of
Correct.
this year.
The theory would be what we would want to do is bid out the cyclical process. We can't go into a contract for 5 years because each year is renewed. But in principle, we would go into it with the understanding, as we had, unfortunately, when this all went down, everything was different. It was a different board, it was different TA. But what we would do is bid out the process for 27 for cyclical, 28 for cyclical, 29, that should be in a properly functioning system. Whoever gets the bid in 27 then performs 28, 29, 30 cyclical, 31 cyclical, and revaluation. So the understanding would be there, which is the understanding that I had, but obviously we don't speak very often, unfortunately, and so that understanding, it's a cross signal. I didn't mean to make it more difficult than it has to be, and I understand, I take the point fully. But in the end, we've been operating since 21 under the understanding that Whitney would be doing 26 in our mind, so it never crossed to do it the other way. So 27 will bid for the next cycle, which goes 27 to 31.
And that makes sense.
Okay?
All right, yes.
Is that fair enough way to explain it?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for
very
that
much.
explanation.
I just wanted to clarify that, so we're teed up to move in that direction toward the end of this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. DPW.
DPW. Seth, would you
Come on up, Seth.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Right now, I'm on 17. Hold on. So let me go up one. I just had it here a second ago.
I probably missed you.
16.
Yeah, 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on 16. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Right here. Yeah. Yeah, 17, 16.
So obviously, Seth's gonna speak to all of DPW, meaning highway, grounds and maintenance.
Yep.
Solid waste, combining, what this means for all of your departments, so. Go ahead, Seth.
Alrighty.
After you.
So typically, gentlemen, I would send this off to you as a memo beforehand, but being in the situation we are, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna kind of read down through here with how we got to those numbers and kind of the cause and effect. So, under the first, the position reductions account, 431210. We are removing the funding for 3 positions. Those 3 positions are the lead mechanic, the grounds and maintenance laborer, as well as the proposed floating truck driver position. All of these positions are currently vacant, and eliminating their fund reduces this line by $190,216. By not filling these vacant positions, we are also would be able to support the 4% wage increase for all applicable employees. This is an important consideration as staff retention is increasingly challenging in public works field across New Hampshire, and remaining competitive with surrounding municipalities, DOT, and private services is hard. Overtime adjustments. We removed the overtime associated with the now vacant positions. We're also reducing the custodian overtime from 175 hours down to 40. That reduction decreased the line by $27,823. Reduction of the part-time positions, that's account 4312 We have reduced the 3 part-time positions to
Okay,
a
there it is.
dollar,
Thank you.
essentially freezing them. That line had $70,348.
I'm sorry, what line was that?
So that was the part-time wages positions.
Okay,
It was 413016. So we had originally talked about generating that
okay,
floating.
you're on a different page than I am. I'm looking,
Under which,
Go to page 32 of your actual budget, the one with all the
Okay.
words, that one.
yeah, I was looking on the
Right.
worksheet.
He's
with
gonna show
wages.
you that he was budgeting the 70,000, he's gone down to the dollar already.
Yeah.
For that position, on page 32. out of
Page
the-
32.
Yep,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
'Cause I was looking at the other sheet.
Yeah, it was, we were originally proposed to
There it is.
move the funds from the part-time wages line to generate that full-time floating truck driver position.
Mechanic.
Without filling the position, we will continue to operate at current staffing levels, maintaining essential services, but without flexibility, so the floating truck driver won't exist, but we'll just continue out of DPW staff.
Are you comfortable, I know it's difficult for everybody.
Yeah.
With the upkeep and maintenance and the vehicles and things like that, you're gonna be able to get by?
At our current staffing level, yeah. Not hiring out the positions, I mean, will reduce some of our services, mostly in time. I was getting to some of that. Like I said, unfortunately, I usually give this to you guys before, but I was kind of reading down through it, but.
Yep.
Yeah, so operational impacts, plow routes and winter operations, all plow routes are covered with current staffing levels. However, reduced staff does mean that sidewalks often take longer to clear. I don't know if you've noticed that over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
The sidewalks sometimes can take a while to get to. Because the roads will always remain a priority,
Of course.
so. Waste hauling will continue to rely on DPW's highway staff. In winter, plowing takes priority. Once the plow routes are completed, the operator shifts to waste hauling, sometimes the next day, depending on the duration of the storm. This approach has worked so far because winter months generally have lower hauling volumes. We just don't have the population, the trash coming into the solid waste to drive the higher numbers. However, during back-to-back storms, we do occasionally need a little bit of overtime to catch up in the wintertime.
Sure.
Solid waste, largely the operating budget for solid waste is driven by the disposal rate. That's the 2 largest numbers in there. So that, over the default budget, that was an increase of 25,503. Last year, we saw 1,137 tons of C&D come in, which was an increase of 13.72. And 2,171 tons of MSW, which is the household trash, which was actually a decrease of 3.5. As far as the C&D tonnage, there's a couple factors. One of the significant factors is that Waste Management stopped accepting the sorted wood as a recyclable commodity in 2025. Since this material is now treated as C&D, and because it's not recyclable under RSA 149M, we can no longer use recycling revolving funds for it. All of it must now be paid for out of the solid waste operating budget. So before we had 30,000 that was allocated out of the recycling revolving to get rid of sorted wood, but that avenue is closed. It's no longer treated as a recycled material.
Okay. So there's gonna be, have you thought of any changes as far as the scale is concerned with contractors coming in to get rid of loads? Is anything different and anything that you've come up with in a thought that,
As far as changing the rate, no, it was kind of part of the policy that we went through, was hoping that the 4-yard limit would kind of help reduce some of that C&D intake, so. Don't know how much of that is going to affect, because we haven't been through a full year of it yet.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
And as far as the grounds and maintenance operating budget, that the proposed budget from '26 was $7,731 lower than our default budget. So that one was actually reduced. Again, not filling that position just means that we'll have limited flexibility to respond to, special events, and the cemetery grass might get a little long from time to time, depending on
Gonna ask about
workloads.
that, yeah.
Same thing with the cemetery. The proposed operating budget for '26 was $1,715 lower than the default budget. So again, that one was to be reduced as well.
And we also, the warrant article for the new Riverside
Yep,
failed,
it did, yep.
so that failed, for any more work being done there.
Right, that'll slow that project down, correct?
Seth, do you think, now you guys got your new stickers, and you're gonna be able to, or begin to enforce sticker use?
Yes.
Do you think there's a substantial amount of outside of the town stuff coming in that'll get headed off, or is it minor?
I feel there is a fair amount. I wouldn't say it's major, but I feel like there is definitely some.
Should help then.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. By the way, I'm sure I speak for the entire board. What a miserable winter and what a great job your guys did.
Thank you.
And continue to do, might not be over yet.
Yeah,
but
Done a-
we've gotten snowstorms in April before.
Yeah, yes, we have. No, you've done a remarkable job, very good job.
Thank you, thank you. They work very hard.
Okay. Any other questions for Seth?
No?
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, and if
Thanks, Seth.
you would like this, I can give you guys all a copy of my
Yeah.
memo, okay?
Yeah, that'd be nice. And thanks for reworking numbers. Not a problem. Working it out, thank you. Everything helps.
Thank you.
Parks and Recreation?
Yes, Parks and Recreation.
Parks and Rec. Good evening, Kelly. How are you?
Good, thank you.
So one of the areas that you can adjust was concerts?
Yes, I had submitted a request to the trustees of the trust fund, asking if they would consider funding 2 concerts at $800 total, and they had approved that request. So I was able to reduce this line by the $800. And also, there is no Old Home Week committee currently.
Okay.
So we were able to reduce that. We kept $1 in that line item, so it's $2,999.
Okay. It's unfortunate for being the celebration this year, 250 years.
Yes.
Okay. So with the $800 off the concerts, what are you talking, 2 concerts?
That's 2 concerts. They're still going to happen. There's 10 total. It's just funded from a different source.
Yeah, from a different source?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's still 10 concerts, which is the full amount.
Have you considered the Old Home Week being just Old Home Day?
There is the Old Home Days, which is the Saturday and Sunday, which we had last year.
Yeah.
And that was the boat museum did the boat show. There was the 5K race. There's the craft fair. There's a concert. And the ABA had a parade. And the Sunday had, actually, there was also the Fireman's Barbecue, Fire Association's Barbecue, Fire and Rescue Barbecue. There was the police fire softball tournament or softball game. And then there was a cribbage game. So there were some activities still
Over the course of the week?
over the course of that weekend.
But you pretty much coordinated that with the departments?
Yes.
Because there was no committee to
Correct.
head it up?
We asked anyone that was hosting anything to please let us know, and we would be happy to advertise it as a full event.
Okay. questions for Parks and Recreation, for Kelly?
No, not for me anyhow.
Nope.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kelly.
Let's see, where are we? Library.
Aye.
Hello, how you doing? It looks like everything pretty much stays the same with the library.
As you know, Holly and the trustees have kept a pretty tight light on things for a number of years.
Yes, they have. And you've been with us now
3 months.
the whole 3 months.
Yes.
How's it been going so far?
Everybody's been very kind. I'm enjoying myself a lot. I'm learning.
Good. Thank you for taking the position. It's important. All right, do we have any questions for the library?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think so too.
I agree.
All right, well, thank you for coming up.
Yeah,
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
The Gilman Museum was same thing, hasn't changed.
If you wanna go back to page 24, that's where your public safety starts.
24.
Oh, did we miss?
Seth
Did we
goes
skip that?
all over, so
Seth-
you
oh,
kinda
Seth,
skip.
yeah.
Oh,
24th.
It's Seth, and then it's public safety, and then it's
Okay.
Seth again.
Oh,
So you
okay.
you missed your
Okay.
public safety on 24.
insurance, visual, audio visual,
20,
You got nothing, then you go to your police.
24 starts the police department, yes. Yep. Good evening. How you doing, Chief?
And Chief,
So you see, there's two lines that were affected in this revised budget, one being full-time wages and the other being holiday pay, line 32. That's based upon two factors. One is, as you recall, this year we added a second SRO position, or added a full-time position to cover the second SRO position, based upon some changes in the retirement system. Basically, moving forward, we're not going to fill that position, so that's one of the discounts you have on that line item. The other factor is, I've been given notice, I have 2 patrolmen that will be leaving in the next month or two. And we also have a forecasted retirement of one of our patrolmen, I think in June. So we're looking at basically that 6 months that we reduced is that administrative time we have to fill those positions. So like, if I had Patrolman Jones is leaving and I want to hire Patrolman Jackson, it's going to take at least 2 months just to process that hiring process. So it can take a little longer, depending if we can't find the right candidate, that type of thing. But in talking with the finance director, we kind of settled on a 6-month window where we, based upon those openings that we'll have, is that won't be paying that salary. So we factored down on that full-time wage 6 months for one patrolman position to basically offset that, that expense that won't really exist because we won't be paying anybody for those, that time.
You okay for coverage with that shortage?
So, depends on how quick
know
we
it's
can
a
fill them,
loaded
right? So
question.
if it's all 3 at once, that's a real hardship for us.
Yeah.
We've already advertised, you may have seen, we had it on the Facebook and all that. We have a PT test coming up shortly. We have talked to a certified candidate as well that seems viable, so we're feeling pretty good. But the idea is we still want to fill all those positions, we're just not going to fill that SRO position, that extra one that we added.
And are the school people okay with that?
So I have a call out to Tim Broderick.
Yeah.
If I can keep some of these positions filled, we'll basically run how we've been running, which is trying to get somebody over there as much as we possibly can. If I go down more patrol, it's very hard to lend that out of patrol if I'm down 2 or 3 spots. So based upon not knowing how it's going to shake out, I want to get him informed at least. We're coming towards the tail end of the year. We're looking more towards next school year, what the plan will be. So we'll be in communication with him to keep him apprised of what we have going on. And at worst case, a patrol guy will do stop stop by the school and do a walkthrough so that some presence and that sort of thing. So at the very minimum, we'll cover it as best we can, but I'm hopeful that based upon how it's going so far, we'll be able to get those positions filled. But we just won't have that full-time dedicated SRO. We'll go at that again next year.
None of that's ever been assisted with or funded at all by the school budget?
So that was part of the whole idea with the second position, was to get reimbursement. So we originally started that program with a retiree, and so all the hours that retiree worked were reimbursed. The issue now is that if I try to hire another retired officer, but they've changed the number of hours that we could do, so they can't actually cover a whole school year. So that's another possibility. If we get a retired part-time officer, he won't be able to work all the hours, but if I can get even 3 days a week covered is better than no days. So
Right.
there's a couple of different options, a couple of different ways we're going to try to work it. The most reliable thing, of course, like I said, for my original presentation, was to have that full-time position, because not only during the school year does it help us, and we get some of that money reimbursed, but then we have full-time coverage from that individual in the summer, which we didn't have before. So, doesn't fit for this year, we'll try again next year, but at least helps us kind of accommodate this revised budget.
Sure.
And the holiday pay just reflects the same thing, basically removing the SRO holiday pay and 50% of a patrol.
Very good. Well, any other questions for the chief?
And Jack, if you want to spend time to go through any of this, you can reach out to me. I see you up here, you have to look at this budget going, holy cow, there's so much going on.
There is a lot going on. It's a lot to take in on short notice.
Yeah, happy to check in with you if you
I
want to.
appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, chief.
We have 4220, fire.
Yes, yes. Chief?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to speak to this. Two areas that were initially cut after the initial proposed operating budget were the wages full-time for not filling two of the two vacant positions, and then the holiday, or we have it listed under benefit buyout regarding the holiday pay for those two positions as well. Questions first, or you want to?
No, go right ahead. Present.
I personally and the department, we are aware of the situation the town is in, and we understand everybody's fighting for the same dollar, basically, to try and get their departments up and running. I think, just speaking, obviously, I'm partial to the fire department, and that's where my statements are gonna come from. We are a dedicated bunch, as Captain O'Brien has stated earlier. We want to ensure that we are trying to provide the utmost best professional, quickest response to the community. One of the factors that hinder us sometimes is one of the greatest things about this community is we are such a, and I say geographically large area, almost 90 miles of land and water. So that gives us it puts us behind the 8 ball in our response times initially. Going from Central Station to Cherry Valley Road or up to the Wolfboro line or vice versa. And then if we're transporting, sometimes we're going to Concord or Portsmouth, and those could be a 3-hour turnaround. So already at what was considered full-time staffing for this, or for 25, was at a bare minimum. Per law, we have to have 2 licensed EMS personnel on the ambulance in order to transport a patient. And that was basically our duty crew, if you will. So we were initially budgeted, or with the warrant article, 2 full-time personnel, and then we would utilize the part-time, or the per diem or on-call people to outfit and hopefully get a 3rd person on to assist with some of these larger incidents and hopefully get some callback from the on-call personnel. Just speaking strictly for some statistical numbers for 25, out of our 1,211 calls, we had 713 EMS calls for service. 73% of those were transports. 7.5% of those were overlapping, so we had at least 2 or more calls going on simultaneously. Out of those, 6.5% of those required mutual aid into the town of Alton. 50% were what we call close transports to Frisbee or Huggins. The other 50% were Laconia, Wentworth Douglas, Portsmouth, and Concord. I would ask respectfully to consider at least looking at funding a third out of those 4. That would give me the ability to have 8 full-time personnel, 2 per shift on our 4 shifts, and then still try to utilize the per diem staff to fill any of those vacancies. That's kind of my spiel. If you have questions or anything specific you want to know, I'm an open book.
Okay.
Can you comment, Chief, on, I understand that the Insurance Services Organization passes judgment on the department, and that can affect homeowners'
Correct. So currently we're...
insurance rates?
Yeah, we're classified as a 5 and a 5Y depending on where you live in town. So if you're in the hydrant district where you have municipal water, we have classified fire protection. You're at a 5. If you're out in the rural district, we call that non-hydrant, it's a 5Y. So there's 2 different classifications for where you live in town. But there are many factors that go into this rating, which includes staffing, water supply, whether it's on an engine, tanker, or municipal water, training, distances. So that's why we have the 3 substations help in that ISO rating. Even though they're not staffed, they provide, according to their books, if you will, or their algorithm, a fire department is close to those outlying parts of town where we're such a large. So it's multifaceted, but yes, there is an impact to response times, staffing, training, communications. It's quite a lengthy process, and it's almost like a reevaluation. Every 5 years, we get reevaluated for that ISO rating. So if we have a decrease in services or the ability to respond, it could have a negative impact on homeowners, their insurance premiums on the back end of it. So most people don't realize that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief, could you just help me understand, I get the wages full-time increase. We've covered that. That's the 2 additional full-time firefighters. Under the wages shift coverage, though, there's also another $100,000 increase on that line item?
So we had previously or currently, as we have 2 different line items we have an on-call and we have a shift coverage. So moving forward, we were trying to combine those 2 wage lines into one to kind of make it, I guess, clearer when we're doing the books, and I think it'll help Laura as well, where we're pulling money instead of from 2 different line items for basically the same thing, just out of a 1 wage line. And then there was a reduction because of what we were calculating. There was a reduction in those 2 lines combined, basically with the full-time staffing, and then utilizing the others for that 3rd person or callback.
All right, so that explains the call company line item of previously $130,000.
Correct.
To 0.
Yes.
Right.
And the increase on the wages shift coverage by $100,000, $102,000, and that difference, the $28,000 is full-time.
Correct.
The reduction.
We had a reduction.
Yes, the reduction, yes. Got it. All right, thank you.
The only other thing I could possibly come up with in a reduction for this year would be to utilize our fire department capital for some projects that we are mandated by, we do every year, hose testing, ladder testing, some of those preventative maintenance and NFPA requirements would be we spend roughly just under $20,000 for those services to do. Trying to just look at any avenue that we could potentially assist, for this year at least, and
Okay.
I have no other questions.
I think I'm all set, too.
Yeah, no, overall, Chief, I think you did a great job shaping this. Really did. Thank you.
appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, next on the, what are we
I
talking? Urgent
think
management.
that's all of them.
That's all of the reductions.
Okay.
Quick question, Ryan. Sure. Where the voters said no to the IT warrant article, are we at real risk for anything there? I know we've got software updates and that kind of stuff.
No, we'll be fine to make that work. I did have a meeting with the IT director. Unfortunately, he had a conflict tonight. There wasn't any adjustments in his lines, but as far as softwares and updates, he has line items to cover that kind of stuff. The capital reserve was more for the vast number of workstations we have, the changing out of outdated and non-supported tablets, workstations, and he will be coming forward with he's currently working on it, a modified long-term plan for workstation and equipment replacement through the current funding that's in the capital reserve moving forward for the board to consider. So we do have, I believe he told me yesterday, 65,000 in the IT capital reserve. And we were allocating the 20,000 again in anticipation of his original long-term replacement plan. He's just modifying that plan like most of the departments have done with their long-term goals, modified them to meet the funding constraints. So you will see a separate proposal down the road for that long-term plan for the capital reserve on IT.
Okay, thank you.
I actually, I'm glad you brought up the IT, because I had one quick question.
Sure.
There was a grant funding line item here that has been proposed to be removed. Is there a reason why we would remove that?
From IT, I'm not aware of, so a lot of times those grant funding lines are for a match of some type. I don't believe that we have any grants that are available right now or on the horizon that are coming out for IT. There was a fast and furious amount of IT grants that were coming out for different security protocols, different things like that. A lot of those have faded out right now. Not to say that they can't come back, but usually we have a heads up.
Yeah, for that, I know from my past experience here is that once you remove one of these line items on the budgets, not that easy to get it back on there. I'd rather see that $1 put back in that line and keep it open. It's a buck.
Okay.
So the way the lines work is that you wouldn't be able to use it that year if it's removed, but we can always put it back if you budget something in that line, and it goes through the budget process.
And it would be allowed to do it again.
Yes,
even
it doesn't
after it's
disappear
been
forever.
eliminated.
But just so you know that we didn't propose eliminating that line as part of this proposal. That was a proposal the IT director brought forward
He was trying
originally
to
in
clean up his
That was already
budget
in there.
from lines that were multiple of the same thing, basically.
All right, so then why would we keep all these other $1 line items if they are so easy to put right back in?
Because you cannot expend from it if there's not a dollar. So if they think that they might need that to expend from, then it has to be at least $1 in order to charge anything to it.
So,
How clear can
just
I
to-
be?
unless that wasn't clear enough. I was going off based off the look on your face.
Yeah,
What she's getting at is,
we want to leave $1 in some of these in case we're going to spend that dollar.
If they,
Oh,
no,
so
if they find they need
keeps
to
it open.
spend anything from that, like they could spend 10,000 from there, as long as we stay within our bottom line. But you can't expend from that line if it wasn't discussed and brought forward
Right,
as
and
an item to spend from.
Right.
So if the line doesn't exist, you can't spend from it.
Exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
so you can shuffle the funds around into an existing line item that has a buck in it, if you need to expend from that line item.
Just to clarify, we don't actually shuffle line items. What happens is we have the bottom line, and say we're in a default, and we're obligated, yes, we are,
And we
we've
are.
been in a couple of
Yeah,
years.
let's try and imagine that for a
Yeah,
moment.
we can imagine it. So, say our electric, we have a default amount on our building fuel. And obviously, fuel costs have gone up. So say we only have 2,000 in the line, but it costs us 5,000 in propane. We would overexpend that line at 5,000. We can do it because we have a building fuel line, but it's only offset by the bottom line. So we don't take money, say, from an obscure line like overtime that we didn't spend and move overtime into the building fuel. Instead, we underexpend overtime, and we overexpend because that's what makes it transparent, the in and out. Because the next year, when we go to BOS budget proposal, or when they put the budget into the town book or anything else, and the public looks at it, they see that we overexpended in a certain area, but underexpended to be able to cover that shortfall. Does that make sense?
It
Maybe.
does, but it doesn't justify why we still have all these other line items in there with only $1 in them.
So, for an example, so like there, if you look at the highway, the DPW has a vehicle lease line, purchase line for $1. He's holding that line, so if he has something that he needs to lease throughout the year and that line didn't exist, he would not be able to just put it on the uniform line or another line. It has to be specific to that item. It's a lease.
But if
Like snow removal contract, same thing, he's got the line. If they end up not having staffing, everybody leaves, whatever, he needs to get a contract, he needs to be able to expend that from that contract line. If it wasn't there, he couldn't spend on contracts. Does that make sense? Because the people have approved these lines, the taxpayers, to expend.
on that theory, the people have approved only $1 in that vehicle lease, which means that they haven't approved to go out and lease a vehicle.
Technically, no, but they approved the bottom line.
Right.
Right.
But
But again-
because you've, what's the word I'm looking for? You've explained that these lines exist. They could cut it at deliberative and say, I want that line 0, and then you can't expend from it. Do you know what I mean? You're giving them every line that you could spend from, going, I could spend from this if I have to, and they're giving you $10 million to spend to do with what you find necessary. So if you have to lease, yes, I know that you're going to lease.
Yeah.
Not for $1,
All right.
cross your fingers,
I-
but
I-
does that make sense?
Kinda, sorta.
Does it make
Yes
sense
and
to
no.
anybody? Go ahead.
So I have a computer expense fund in my line. I bring it to $1. Because say last year I got a brand new computer. I walk out of town hall and I drop my computer and break it. That allows me to now buy or repair my computer because that line exists. Does that make sense?
I think where he's probably getting at, okay, that line exists, but where's the money come from?
Another line.
Something
But it
The
comes from
bottom
another line.
number.
Right.
We have to shortfall, underexpend the line.
So what prompted all of this was the removal of a line here, which I didn't understand why we should be.
So he's cleaning up his budget. He says, I'm not going to need that line because I can cover those costs in another line for the same thing. He had like hardware fire, hardware police, hardware town hall. He's like, I can make hardware and cover everything I need to cover.
Okay.
So he's okay with that.
Yes,
He
those are
recommended it.
his
It was his
comments
choice.
that he wanted me to remove.
And that was already in the approved budget.
Right, he
Or,
wanted to
well,
remove those.
Not the approved budget, but the budget that was presented.
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
And that is it for actual changes in any of the departments as far as the budget reduction.
Yes.
Okay. So that being said, we need to go to what the board chooses to do at this point.
Mr. Chairman, this is just a suggestion in case the board wants to entertain it, because the board has the privilege to decide, given the amount of people in the audience right now, before you make a decision on this, if the board chooses to listen to any public comments, they can certainly open up for public comments where we're revisiting a proposed budget. I don't know if that would be beneficial to the board.
Oh, I think that'd be very beneficial. I think we should do that.
Okay. I just wanted to point
Yeah,
that out.
we could do that now.
We can do that now.
So, at this time, we'd like to open up for any comments on what we've discussed tonight, any input.
I would have been disappointed.
Yeah.
We were worried about you for a minute there, Lauren.
Drew, you were listening to me at the default budget. Hey, at the deliberative session. Can you tell me the number again?
What's it?
10 million?
$10,132,064.
10 million what?
$10,132,064 is the new proposal.
Did you not get a handout?
Yeah. No, I didn't.
Oh, here.
see any.
this number right here, the highlighted one.
Which is,
The only thing about this is, people are gonna say, well, why didn't you do this before?
I knew that was coming.
You know, that is what's gonna happen, you know?
Absolutely.
So we've gone, 336,503 is gonna be the difference between.
No, 336,503 is what,
It's the increase over the default budget.
right.
Over the default budget.
The default, yeah, the $996,079 is the difference.
Okay.
There's a difference of 996,000.
Was the original.
Which is the original.
Well, I'm glad to see you doing this, because last year was kind of upsetting that you didn't seem to do any of this last year. It didn't seem like the board did any of this last year. You just kind of accepted it and said, okay, let's go on. So I'm gonna give you credit for that. This year you actually sitting down, the board's actually sitting down and looking at this. And I don't think that was done last year or the year before. So I do give you credit for that. That's great to see you're involved in this. One thing you just brought up at the end here is, and I brought up at the deliberative session, all of these things are getting lumped together. There's nothing, you have no idea what's going on for wages or anything else at the dump now. I'm just picking that one. But all these things are getting lumped in together. People said that transparency, well, that's part of it. Now, you look at your budget and it says 000 for wages for the dump. Well, now we know somebody's working at the dump. You know, I'm just picking that one item. This lumping together doesn't give people really an idea of what's going on in some of these areas. And again, the revolving funds. I'm gonna ask the board to look at page 11 in the town report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. Okay, so at this point, we can discuss the proposed budget.
Yeah, the proposal and anything else that the department heads asked
Had
the
to say.
board to reconsider.
Yep.
And if I just may comment on one thing, just for the public and moving forward, because that comment is coming up long before, Lauren had mentioned it, but it's already been mentioned, you know, why didn't you do this in the first place? And really, what it comes down to is, the original proposal had the full complement of personnel, full wages, full benefits. Ideally, that's what the department heads felt that they needed to keep the level of services that they had at that time. We are making a proposal right now that reduces that staffing level, and that's how we're making it happen. We're not taking money from anywhere else other than vacancies to make this happen. So just wanted that out there more so than for the public and the discussion tonight.
Thank you. Okay, how does the board feel at this time with the proposed new budget?
I think that the reductions that were realized were greater than what I expected we could do. I would really like to save one of those two, at least one of the two fire EMT positions, if it was at all possible. Obviously, every dollar that we add lowers the chance of the budget passing. I think the public is somewhat aware and should be aware that undertaking this new budget proposal is a complex process in terms of the state law required steps that are essentially the same as the original budget, which involves the budget committee and a public hearing and a deliberative session and a full day's election. It's not something that any one of us wants to undertake, certainly not likely, but the risks of the default budget, I think are more than we want to face, not only because we would be giving up some essential coverage from employees in critical areas, but also one of the things that Ryan pointed out that I never would have even considered is that a third default budget for any town in New Hampshire is almost unheard of. Two is kind of rare, three is almost unheard of. And if you're going out in the job market years from now and attempting to hire good qualified people, anybody that's going to go to work for a town is first going to look and see what that town has done for budgets. And when they say that you said no 3 years in a row, they're going to go look for a job somewhere else because they're going to feel like this is a town that doesn't support its government and doesn't respect its employees. And I know that's really not true of Alton. I know there's an undercurrent from a small group of people that somehow the whole town is being run for the benefit of a few individuals, and we have a good old boy network out there somehow that's benefiting and everybody else is losing. There's a lot of innuendo and suggestions to that effect. There are no facts and no evidence, and while I wish it would go away, I have a feeling it's going to keep rumbling in the background, and I hope people give it the amount of credibility it deserves, which is zero, and support this budget and support our town. I certainly would be in favor of going ahead with a second budget produced and distributed and offered to the voters, and we will do everything we can to make as much information available as possible. One good thing is now that we have the warrant article results, we can more accurately project the true likelihood tax increase, whereas previously all we could do was guess because we didn't know what was going to pass and what was not. And I also think the additional meetings that we'll have to have in deliberative session will give us an opportunity to further provide information to the public. Hopefully the public will come forth with questions and suggestions. We need all the help we can get, but we really need to get this passed.
Yeah, I believe at this stage of the game, and where we're at already into the year, being already in the third month of the year, and going into the default budget, and I'm very happy with all the departments that were able to look back at their budgets, to do their necessary due diligence, to be able to reduce the bottom line and to reduce what we were looking at as a default. I think I'm in favor of going with the new proposed budget, taking the time to go through it, and take it to the next level, which would be the default, deliberative, going into deliberative and explaining, like Richard just said. I think it's the best way to go. The people have spoken, and we're doing due diligence to try to make the budget as reasonable as possible, and I think our departments have shown that. And I think this is something that could be acceptable with the town. It's going to take a little time to go through and get it done, but I think it's the right thing to do.
Forgive my newness. I have a question. Is there any way to make any of this budgetary change from the initial 10% to this amended, which is like 4.1%, I think we said? Is there any way to make any of that a little bit more à la carte for the voters? You know, say the voters want to add that at least one fire position. Does it all have to be one budget that they're voting on, or can there be line items that amend the budget as they vote, so that if they want that extra police person, if they want that extra fire person, they get more say in what the final result is?
So the only way that that can work is, so in this particular process, the only thing that can be voted on in this particular manner is a proposed operating budget. But what you're talking about can be done on the floor of deliberative, and it can also be done, because the next step for this is going to be a public hearing with the budget committee. And the budget committee is going to have to bring forth their proposed budget, which could be different than what the Board of Selectmen is bringing forward. But ultimately, to add a position or take a position away, it would have to be a motion amended on the floor, or not, a motion to amend on the floor, and a second, and it be voted in, and whatever that number is that is adopted by majority vote on the floor is what goes forward on the ballot. So I hope that explains it.
Yeah, thank you.
That's how that process would have to go, but it can be done. It can be done, but it can't be something that goes on the ballot.
Okay. I'm still thinking about things from a voter.
No,
So,
absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Certainly. And if, I don't know if the board wants to hear what that number is. I don't know if you have that number off the top of your head as far as that one firefighter position that they're talking about.
Yeah, I think it would be important
that
to
would
know
look
what
like,
that is.
what that number is.
Along with the,
Do you have it?
I can speak from my budget, because obviously personnel
Yeah,
is
'cause the-
multifaceted. So according to the reduction for the 2 positions, or not filling the 2 vacancies in the full-time wages and the holiday pay, basically, would be about just shy of 81,500 for my budget. Obviously Laura has her
Right.
budget, which
I
includes
look at
the
the whole budget.
bigger expenditures with benefits.
Do you know roughly on 86?
So I have a question though, is that for a full year? That's for his full year of just wages, right?
Correct, so
Okay,
this
so
was a
mine would
reduction.
so mine goes wages, you have all your benefits, your health, dental, life, accident, short-term disability, New Hampshire retirement, all of that. Overtime included in my New Hampshire retirement. What I did is I took his overall 2025 overtime wage cost, and I divvied it up amongst, I think, 7. I did an average of, because you've had a few, okay. So one person, what I have would cost about $144,000 for one.
that's all in, that's wages and benefits.
So you were just covering wages?
Wages
Strictly
and-
wages.
and
This is
buyout.
including everything
Correct. I
with
averaged it out,
insurance,
so I mean.
benefits?
And that include, don't add them together.
So I don't know, like,
No,
like, I don't know if he would
No,
be like a
that's it
paramedic would
right
be
there.
more,
Yes,
like, I don't know the level.
one more
I mean,
person.
things can fluctuate, because I mean, if they're based higher levels, they make more money. I mean, I just averaged.
And is also a fluctuating.
Correct.
And that could be brought to attention at the deliberative.
Right. But just so you know, like, I'll answer Mr. Sleeper's question, like, it does do multiple, so you can't just say, okay, hire him at this rate of pay and you get 80,000. There's so many more facets to it.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
That's good to know.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
I just thought it was important for you to have an actual number.
Yeah,
if
no,
you were
and
talking
that
about it.
is important to have that number, because that will be definitely asked if people want to add the 3rd employee. Okay, any further discussion?
That's a little shocking. That means that the benefits package is 75% of the wages.
So you also have to look at the overtime. So the fire department budgets $20,000 in overtime. So when I do my benefits, it's on their wages, what the department heads tell me. So when I figure out his New Hampshire retirement, it's on $20,000. Do you want to know what they've spent in the last so many years on overtime? You don't.
Probably not.
Literally, you do not. Because I was shocked myself, because I don't usually look, you know. So in 2023, the overtime just in wages was $162,000. They budgeted 20. So I had to come up with, in our bottom line, we had to cover all those New Hampshire, because that's not budgeted for. In 2024, it was $179,000, and in 2025, it was $191,000.
If those numbers are consistently higher than that expected 20,000, why are we not adjusting that?
Because he's using that, if I'm not mistaken, he's using the call pay to cover his overtime, but we're not covering it in the benefits packet, like the benefit lines, because it's not a budgeted overtime item. Do you see? The shift in call
$130,000
would
that
not
got moved over
be
into
subject to
that.
New Hampshire retirement, because shift in call is per diem, correct?
Correct.
So they're not subject to New Hampshire retirement like full-time people
And
are.
for full transparency, that 23 operating budget was prior administration, so.
Right.
I just went back a few years to compare.
Was not mine, but again, we are stuck at that number because we've been in default for 3 years. So each year that I've been here, the past, this was my third year, trying to increase that line item for overtime. Obviously, we're trying to reduce the amount of overtime. Last year, got the 4 positions. We ended up with 2 vacancies towards the end of the year. We also had a full-time member that's been on light duty due to a pretty extensive workman's comp issue. So we were filling that gap with wages that were not being utilized from our on-call, that per diem line and whatnot. So we are well aware, I am well aware of where we're at, trying to reduce that, but we're trying to maintain that minimum level of service of a minimum of 2 providers on 24/7.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's where it comes out of, is that overtime.
And please don't take my question.
No, not at all. I
I'm new, I'm
100%,
trying to understand
yeah.
things.
I don't.
Thank you very much, Chief.
And I just looked at those kind of figures because we are really condensing our budget this year. There's not a lot of play in this budget. So I'm already looking like, oh boy, I had to come up with $60,000 last year on New Hampshire retirement to cover the overtime that he needs to cover this year. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, wow, that is a lot.
It's a domino effect.
Yes. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
All right, so do we need a motion to advance this to the Budget Committee and
Yes.
public?
Yeah, and a
Yes.
specific motion, well, you can put it all into one motion, but a specific motion wanting to go to a special meeting with a modified proposed operating budget.
Say that again slowly.
A motion from the board, if you choose to advance to a special meeting with a modified proposed operating budget. That's what I got for language from legal.
Cost us $2,000 to get that.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah. If you want to make a motion, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess my question is I thought that the next step is to move this to the Budget Committee.
It's the next step, but only the Board of Selectmen can vote to pursue a special meeting.
Okay.
So that's where
That's
that
what we're
language is coming from. The board is actually voting in favor to pursue a special meeting. It dies here if the board chooses not to pursue it. We don't talk about, no, we don't go forward. If you choose to pursue it, then yes, correct. The next step is the Budget Committee and a public hearing for the public. We have to schedule deliberative. There's that table I got from legal that has the timeline on everything.
Yep, yeah, we have that. Okay, so if you'd like to entertain a motion, go ahead.
I will make a motion then that we pursue a special meeting to review, to pursue this revised operating budget.
Okay, you want to put a number on it?
Sure. For the total of $10,132,064.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So
Question. How?
Sure.
We need to communicate this to the voters, which is a
Oh, it
devil
will,
of
it
a
will.
job
It will be.
in Alton. I guess we could do Facebook, and we can try and get the local newspaper involved, but I'm always,
Well, it'll be notified because of the Budget Committee and the public,
yeah,
public meeting.
Yeah.
So that'll be the start of it, correct?
Correct.
And going into that'll be asking and inviting the general public to come to the meeting to go over with the Budget Committee and approval of that budget, to go forward.
Laura and I also discussed about getting these documents and the full breakdown of the budget as presented before the public hearing on the website and get it out there so it can be accessible.
should be.
Accessible to the public. We can even burn some hard copies if the board thinks that would help as well to get some
Yeah,
hard
any
copies.
way to put this out there as much as possible.
good, yeah, because I think we have a good story.
And definitely I'll put it out now for the department heads, especially the two chiefs and the DPW director to be present at those hearings as well, to speak individually on any questions, and, because the major changes that we discussed tonight are in your 3 departments.
And once again, I personally would like to thank all the departments, and especially the 3 major departments for making their cuts and going through their budgets. Again, going through that again it's a lot of work. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Moving on right now to Town Administrator report.
I just have 2 things for the board. Real quick, I gotta ask the board about a possible waiver of fees for a zoning board case. It was brought to my attention that, from the planning department and zoning assistant, that there was a case last month, Loon Cove Road, map 50, lot 36, where there was an issue of a non-conforming structure, non-conforming lot, and the zoning board chose to continue that application because of pending changes at the vote. And those changes did go through and effectively change the zoning ordinance, so that application is now null and void, and because it was originally for a variance, and with those changes required a special exception, because it has to be re-noticed. Legal's recommendation was that because the board made the choice not to continue it based on those facts and the changes, those circumstances, that we waive the noticing fees, the postage and noticing fees for the new special exception for that case.
Okay, do you need a vote on that?
I do need a vote to waive the fees for map 50, lot 36, Loon Cove Road. If you want to see it.
Okay. Okay, I make a motion to waive the application fees for Loon Cove Road, map 50, lot 36.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
And then the only other thing is just for information purposes. I did, the water department had forwarded me a letter from DES, and we had successfully, help me if I go off the road with, off the rails with this, but there was a class action suit from DES on the PFAS contaminations, and based on the information that was submitted, we were awarded roughly $369,000. Those funds can be.
Come on up, Courtney.
I'm sorry.
Go
This
ahead.
just came in. No, it just came
Down,
in.
You're the only one with any money.
Hi. I just wanted, this was an informational thing for the board, that the money was awarded, because there will be some mitigation, PFAS mitigation opportunities that we can capitalize with that funding, but those are yet to be
Yes.
decided and brought to the board yet, but that
So
funding was earned.
the money is in a trust fund account. It is not coming to the town of Alton or the water department. We're considered a tier 2 contaminant, so we're not top tier right now. But basically what this money will be used for is, when we do move forward, when we're next in line, contaminants, there's some emerging contaminants that are coming down the line that they're mandating we test for. This is all part of that process. So basically what this will do, it'll sit in this account, I think it's the Drinking Water Groundwater Trust, to help us plan for the development of a PFAS mitigation. Both of our wells had contamination. They're not high levels, but as years goes on, they find out more about PFAS, that the limits are going lower and lower. So we will be in line. This will not cover the cost of PFAS mitigation. I just need to make sure you guys are clear that this is just a fragment. It'll probably play out with the planning, the engineering cost, and things like that. So as we learn more about this money, there may be more money available. Could be in the terms of a grant, could be in the terms of a loan. So just another thing for us to be thinking about with the water,
I'm
There's-
sorry, that
there's a
was
lot.
my intent, was just informational. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No,
with it.
that's fine.
She was
You know,
getting it.
everybody's
No,
talking
yeah.
about PFAS. I mean,
But-
I mean, it's the hottest thing out there.
Yeah.
But, you know, right now, even though we're not highly contaminated, there is trace amounts, which is, you know, it's a forever chemical. And just some back history, this is from 3M, and for the fire foam applications, as we talk about, you know, going down the river, things like that, infiltrating groundwater. Each one of the PFAS chemicals tends to contaminate at different levels. Some of them carry further, some kind of stay where they're at. We're not inundated with it, but, you know, obviously enough that we have found the contaminants and to put some money away. It's great that there's money available for us, but once again, it's not gonna be the whole gamut. It's just to get us going. If that covers it?
Yes,
Yes.
no,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
I thought it was important to know that.
Any
that-
questions
I thought
about
I
it?
had the letter here, and I
Oh.
apologize, it wasn't
Yeah, that's why I
in
brought
front
my
of me.
phone up, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but I was gonna revert to the,
Well, thank you for
any
coming up.
questions? No? Okay.
No, thank you very much.
Thanks.
That's all I have.
Okay. Selectmen reports.
I got nothing.
Jack, you have anything?
I got nothing.
Nothing from me?
Okay, the only thing I have is, just a little bit of a follow-up, it's not much, a little follow-up on the dam project from Fish and Game. Through the help of a former selectman, Brock Mitchell, we've, had a chance to talk, a little bit, or he did, had a chance to talk with the, Representative Joe Kelly, and trying to set up this week, if possible, if not this week, next week, to have a meeting with him to show him the project, take him around. And look at that. It's a start, and it's a step in the right direction. No, we don't have a committee, but we will definitely look into it. And I took the opportunity of actually reaching out to Governor Ayotte and waiting for a response from her. And that's about it that I have right now.
Thanks, Brock.
Thank you. Okay, approval of the minutes.
We had one that we waived,
Yeah, we had to skip over last time.
We had to skip over because we
Yeah.
didn't have enough people. We
you're
had the
still gonna
quorum,
have
but
to
one
skip
person is-
over, because I wasn't here, and
You-
obviously
you weren't
Jack
here.
wasn't
Jack,
here.
So we still can't.
we're still in a
can't do it.
predicament.
We'll have
Yep.
to wait for Andy.
Old minutes never die.
We'll have to wait for Andy on that one. Consent agenda. Approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, no appointments this evening? And public input. 5 minutes on government and town business.
Mr. Chairman, could I approach the board with a gift to the town?
Ooh.
Ooh, gifts.
Yes?
Reuben Wentworth, for the record. I'm hoping you get somebody in the DPW to get onto the cemetery and take care of 2 flags that have been ripped for the last 3 months.
Okay.
Here's a gift from the citizens of the town of Alton.
Oh, thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you very much.
If you need more for your flagpole, let me know. I will find you more gifts.
Thank you.
Because I know you're short because of the good old boys, sir.
Yep,
That was
that's it.
insulting. As a past selectman for 15 years, that was insulting to be called something about the good old boys. We had that years ago in this community called the riffraff. When we had all concerned taxpayers, that was very insulting back then. I've lived here 65 years, and the only one that had ever said something like that is people that moved into our community who had never been a part of our community for many years. So that was very, very disrespectful, sir.
My apologies, I did not mean it in that respect, and I am not implying that there are any good old boys. This is what you're seeing on the internet.
Well, shouldn't believe everything you see on the internet. That's
Oh,
what
I
your
don't.
chairman said.
I don't.
But yet you just said, let's put it on social media. It should never have been said tonight. because some people in the audience took offense to it.
Well, if anyone took offense, I certainly apologize. It was not my intention.
Next question for you gentlemen, or somebody can answer it for me. How many positions are there in the IT department?
I think we just
Just
had
one.
one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there any pay raises given last year? I've asked this question before.
No. Nope.
All right. How did the IT department full-time wages go from 77,000 to 86,000? And if there wasn't a pay raise, that's fine, but that's what was shown as expended in your budget. Because if there was a pay raise, you all had to sign it, authorize it. And if this happened, because I've talked to other employees, they say, oh, no, we don't have any. Full-time wages on a lot of departments were overexpended. No new hirees, but it was overexpended. So I'm just asking a question, so hopefully I can get a response.
It all results from the 10% COLA that was granted in, was it 23 or 22, the end of the year, 23?
23.
Before we went to default the first time. So there was a cost of living, a 10% cost of living when we were down 9 positions that was granted. The employees got that, but right after that, we went to default. So it didn't, the COLA was never carried forward in the default.
Okay,
So,
but is that the only position they got 11% pay increase? In 2025, not 2024, but 2025.
May I speak?
Laura?
Okay, so I want to go back to your original question, because I don't think town administrator is on the same page as we are. So he did not get any merit increase or anything, but if you hit, as you know, personnel policy, if you hit a 10-year mark, you get your extra buyout at the end of the year. If you don't go and take your time, you get that bought out at the end of the year. That is what's happening with your salaried employees. I looked at several yesterday. Plus, one of the years had 53 pay weeks, not 52. That makes a difference. Where I throw the last pay week of every year, might go into the following year, might go back a year, because it depends on when it hits. So I want that to be known.
But this is where I'm talking, gentlemen. You guys can answer it. Your town administrator, your finance officer. You gotta sell the budget. Because the way it looked out there in the public, somebody got a big pay raise with no explanation. So finally get an explanation that it was a buyout because of tenure. You need to say that. I was hoping tonight you would take a week to look at those numbers. Because me looking at the numbers back there and the very little light we got back there, it's a little confusing. Some of the numbers didn't match. I do have a lot more to say, but I'm only limited to a few times, so I'll have to wait till the next selectmen's meeting to say the most. But I wish you the best on your town meeting. But I will ask each and every one of you questions on this. You can't answer it, that means you can't sell it. Thank you.
Also, thank you for this, and I also want to point out, there are select board members and other committee members that do donate flags.
Well, I'm not saying they don't. The reason I did that is, that's been down there 3 months with a 3-foot tear hanging off of it. The American flag has had a rip through it for 2 months. Coming out of Dunkin' Donuts or coming into town, you see it, you get hit in the face.
Okay.
So I'm just saying,
Thank you. Anyone else?
Lauren Carr. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're tackling the SAD committee, Save Alton's Dam, SAD. But I think we still have to have a community get-together like we did for the Rumble. What
Rumble
I call
strips.
them Rumble things.
the rumble
You know, it's like, you know, they say you can break one straw, but a whole bunch of straws you can't break, that type of idea. I think you still need to push that there's gonna be a community behind this. So I'm glad to hear you're gonna try to, tackle that problem, because I think it's gonna be a swamp out there, big portions of swamp.
And like I've said before, I also think that the residents that are abutters need to get involved.
I
So
agree.
it's important for them to get involved as well.
I
We can do our due diligence to try to bring the right people to come in to try to make a difference, to fight this, but it also has to have some help from the residents themselves.
Yes, absolutely agree. I think the rumble strip hearing proved that it certainly works better when you have a bunch of people there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, guys. I just want to add to keep in mind for the special meeting, the elections, we don't have schedule at the school. They've already done their school calendar until the end of this year. So they probably will not be able to close the school like they always do for our elections. Very, very important to advertise if you change the location, because this is a selectman's responsibility for elections, to make sure everyone knows. 2016 was a nightmare. Just for people knowing where the elections were and it could be considered voter suppression at that point, because they don't know. So we just have to make sure that's clearly
Absolutely.
known as soon as possible.
Thank you.
So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you very much. Any other input? Good evening.
Good evening, Richard Finnerty, Junior. I would like to ask, on behalf of a certain group of people, that we've been told, obviously through social media or whatever, to get facts before you mouth off. Okay? And we've been looking into stuff, and a lot of it's been good. We ran into a roadblock at one point, and it was told to us that it was up to the selectmen to ask for that information so that it could be put, because evidently it's not in the town hall. There was a investigation in 2010, 2011 that the town had spent $53,025 on. And there's just supposedly answers in that information that would be what otherwise people are just gonna assume things. Could the selectmen request that information from MRI in?
For what years?
2010, 2011. Whatever's in it is surely reach statutes or whatever, but it would just clear up a lot of things, I think.
On what was the sum?
$53,025.
53,000.
And was this an amount that was expended with no?
Well, we don't, it's not the amount, it's the information.
What is the information you're looking for?
That's irrelevant. It's not, it's just whatever information MRI had through that time.
Of the 50, so we're supposed to look for in 2010, 2011, an expenditure of 53,000?
Yes, they have it right on file, but they just need your permission to release it to the town to be inspected, redacted, or what have you. For you to look over, or whatever, and make it public.
Okay.
So that the public has access to it, that's all.
Okay.
The information is out there, but it's not official information, I guess is what we could look at.
Okay. So you're looking to dig into that, go into that, and look into it, and
As
get
a-
that publicized?
As a start,
Okay,
that's all.
thank you.
Is there a specific person at MRI that you've spoken to, so we're not trying to figure it out?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just
gonna
thinking,
be a
is
lot
there a
to try to
certain
figure out.
person that you?
His name was Bruce Dougal,
McDougal.
I believe.
At least maybe he'll know what we're talking about, I don't know. Okay,
They seemed to know what they were
Okay.
asking.
I wasn't
Okay.
here then, so yeah, thank
All
you.
right,
Thanks. Anyone else? Seeing no one, we'll close the public input, and we will go right into non-pub. I make,